So is it quick? There's some stuff that we take maybe about one person sleeping.
This morning, the Washington State Attorney General's office made a decision that this family has been waiting 14 months to hear about. This morning, the Washington State Attorney General's office announced for the first time in this Attorney General's office's history that they would actually be prosecuting law enforcement officers for murder. The murder of Manny Ellis. The first time it's ever happened. But there's a reality in this. The reality is you don't want to be first in this kind of way. You might want to be first in your class at school. You might want to be first in a track race or a football game. But you don't want to be in a place where for over 14 months you mourn the loss of your loved one and suffer the demonization of your family, of the people that stand with you, and most importantly, of the person they killed, of the person the police killed. The reality is that every dinner table that his mom has sat at over the course of the past 14 years or 14 months, someone has been missing. At the birthdays for Manuel Ellis's children, they have missed their father. Manuel Ellis, and I feel compelled at this moment to really talk a little bit about who he is missing when his sister Monet needs somebody to help her pick up her children from school, or from the Boys and Girls Club, or to hold them when they have a skinned knee, or to just be present as a loving force in their lives. Matthew misses his baby brother. Because when you're an older brother, you feel responsible for what happens to your younger siblings. You feel like you're supposed to be in a place where you can actually help them move forward through the world, teach them what you've learned. And the reality is that his children, they miss their uncle too. There are no winners at this moment. There are only questions about how we move forward. There are only questions about where we go from here. While the prosecution is welcome, because this whole family believes wholeheartedly that all people are to be treated equally, including when they wear badges and they murder. The question really is, where do we go from here? So at the heart of this issue at this moment is a reality that I feel like we must address in the state of Washington, because the only thing we have left really is to try to stop this from happening again, to put our arms around this family and tell them that we love you, to acknowledge that we are our brother's keeper, we care about our sisters, and we will stand with you no matter what the fire is, no matter what the claims are against you, and we will find the truth. We'll find the truth. At this moment, we have to talk about those that are in this system that actually enable officers to commit murder. That is just as important as the criminal charges. Because we all know now that the reality is that Manuel Ellis was doing exactly what we said he was doing. He was at church enjoying his time with the Lord, playing drums for the band. He talked to his mom that night and told her how much he loved her. Talked about how special his relationship was with the Lord and how he continued to grow and how excited about it he was. And he went and he got snacks from a 7-Eleven, decided to walk. Now the reality is that in our nation's history, there are places called sundown towns. And what a sundown town meant in the past was that if you were of a particular race, black, and you were caught late at night, you could be in desperate trouble for your life. Sadly, at this moment, here in Tacoma, Washington, there are times when if you are black and you are walking down the street alone, not doing anything wrong and nobody can vouch for you, they can grab your body and do tremendous degradation to it. They can throw it on the ground, they can tase you, they can beat you, they can choke you, and then they can say that you were actually doing something to them. And I'm sure that what many are asking or prepared to ask me later is, but we have criminal charges here. But isn't this different? And the harsh reality is that no, it's not. Because for the first 3 months after Manuel Ellis' death, the narrative was Manuel was dangerous to the officers. The narrative was that he had excited delirium. The narrative was that those officers were in a struggle for their life. It wasn't until videos started to come forward that showed a different story. It wasn't until witnesses started to come forward that showed a different story. But the reality is, the Pierce County Sheriff's Office had done such damage to a legitimate investigation in this case that people had to start over repeatedly. The person that ended up being elected as the sheriff of this county stood at a podium just like this and told members of the media that Manuel Ellis was the assaultive one, that Manuel Ellis was dangerous, that, well, he must have been trying to approach a girl. Oh, wait, that didn't work. So he must have been a car prowler. Oh, no, that didn't work either. So, oh, there was a car that must have, like, driven off and we couldn't get the license plate or anything, and that's who he was harassing. And then with every step, when it didn't work, they found another reason. The Pierce County Sheriff's Office was so interested in the demonization of Manuel Ellis and the hiding of evidence that they actually went to the courts of Pierce County. And when they went to the courts of Pierce County, they actually sought to get a search warrant. And the probable cause that they used for a search warrant was against a man that was deceased, claiming that they needed his medical records. And let me tell you, in all of those Pierce County Sheriff's police reports for that allegedly independent investigation, they listed Manuel Ellis as the suspect. Couldn't have been an independent investigation. The reality is that the state wanted no part of this either. And many of you are wondering, well, how come it took 14 months? Well, let me tell you. The Washington State Patrol is incapable of conducting an independent investigation when it comes to law enforcement and law enforcement activity against human beings. I sat through many of those interviews and I witnessed it personally. It was so bad that eventually the Washington State Attorney General's office had to take it over and use its own investigators and interview everybody all over again. So why the delay? The delay comes because police were investigating police no matter what uniform they were wearing. The reality is we need not just an independent agency, we need an independent agency that doesn't rely on law enforcement or police officers because they're not prepared to tell the truth about people's children. There is no room for sham investigations. There's no place for that. So where do we go from here? And I'll tell you, it's the same place where we've always been. Through thick and thin, no matter what happens, we will all, at this place right here, be our brothers and our sisters' keepers. We will stand with them. We will stand with the next family, and the next family after that will demand justice. And we'll think about this, and you should think about this too. If Manuel Ellis lived that moment like we wish he had, those officers still would be wrong for what they did. There wouldn't be any videos, and he probably would have been convicted of assault of a police officer. That is a difficult reality that we all have to face. We all have to acknowledge. And if we care about a just society, we all have to address it. I remember reading a letter to the city and the state written by the Tacoma Police Department officials, basically saying that what happened was in Minnesota was wrong, saying that what happened to George Floyd was wrong. But they told us to trust that they were not Minnesota. I do see one difference in relation to Minnesota. At some point, the other officers stood up, such as the chief, and said something. At some point, other officers stood up and actually said, what happened was wrong, and that's not us, and we will stand with those that are actually prosecuting. And in that way, Tacoma's not like Minnesota. Tacoma is much more like Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, where 2.5 years ago, a man was tased, beaten, and killed by law enforcement, and then they claimed it was a car accident. We have to address what our town is like. We actually have to delve deeper, and we have to trust the people. Because law enforcement in this town, in this county, they rely on not having cameras. They rely on people just relying on their word and their badge and then doing whatever they want to human beings. And I will never let them forget that when Manuel Ellis said, "I can't breathe, sir," the last voice he heard in response was from law enforcement, and that voice said, "Shut the fuck up." We won't be silent. We won't walk away from this. We won't pretend that council members don't have a certain amount of responsibility to actually know what's happening in the city. We won't pretend that the county executive didn't try to delay this unnecessarily. We won't pretend that the Pierce County Sheriff's Office didn't actively work to hide evidence of a murder. We won't let the mayor off the hook, even if she stood at a podium like this and said those officers should be arrested and charged, because those officers were not fired.
No.
There wasn't enough of an attempt. And what I feel is we only receive any sort of action once people are caught. But we don't see justice in such a way where the powers that be actually reach out and find the wrongdoers and say you were wrong for that. We don't see a system of justice yet in Tacoma where folks that are in the upper echelon of power here actually walk in and say, I saw that somebody got killed last night and you officers were here. I want everything on my desk. I need to know. The council's been too quiet on this, and it's a shame. And it's embarrassing. And they can do better. And that's why we say it right now, right here, at this moment, in love for this family, who reached out to several all over the place for 3 months trying to get anybody to pay attention. And I know what they received because I hear it every now and then too. Oh, well, Mr. Bible, there's a lot of work that we have to do, and we'll get right on that, or we'll check and we'll just see. But, you know, our officers are actually pretty good, and they have busy jobs, and maybe it was frustration or maybe some other things were happening, but we'll get back to you with some answers because you do deserve that. That is not enough. We have to do better because the reality is, and we saw it in their text messages, one of the officers that was present at the scene got a text message from another officer showing a badge, showing the Punisher symbol, which is an executioner symbol, and also a text message that said the whole second floor backs you. You guys are studs. That is your police department in Tacoma. So we have a decision to make in terms of what we are going to do. But I'll tell you, these charges don't let anybody else off the hook because we will all at this place, at this time, at this moment, continue to do the work that we need to do to stop the next one. Because justice has already walked out those doors. It walked out those doors the moment Manuel's soul left his body. So now we're just trying to ease pain and develop a system of actual accountability. But justice ain't here. With that, I'm going to give the mother the opportunity to come to this podium and share how she feels about the charges.